Tifu current wife and I were both married previously and both had 3 children each. We went to HS together in a small town. Both of our families are well known in the area with deep roots, both families been here a long time. Last year I got my wife a ancestry DNA kit as a gift because she wanted to know more about her European roots than her sister decided to do the same. When their results were posted it started making family connections which included my mother, my oldest son, my uncle etc. Wife's mom comes in the room so they ask her how we could be related. Her mom starts crying and says that when she was very young she overheard someone say Tom isn't your father, Jimmy is. Her mom being from older generation says she just put it out of her mind and convinced herself it's just a rumor. I call my mom asked if she's ever heard a rumor that her father could be my wife's mother's father as well. She gets quiet for a moment and says yes I have and it was believed to be true by her mom as well and that her dad, my grandfather, was a well-known cheater, womanizer. We look further into the information on 23andMe and it literally says that my wife and my oldest son share a great-grandparent. More of us are now getting tests on the same platform but it appears a World War II era secret has come to light. TL, Dr. Wife gets DNA test, discovered decades-old secret, turns out I married my first cousin. Edit, 1: to clear all kids are from both of first marriage. 2: my mom and wife's mom are apparently half-sisters. 3. Wife's mother is quite upset. 4. World War II was hard on everyone. Trying to not make a joke here. Edit 2. At first wife was laughing about this but I'm afraid that the reality of it is caught up to her. Personally I think she's reading too far into it. I wasn't aware of how prevalent this particular taboo fetish is. Some of y'all are freaks. Maybe once this is settled I can have some fun with it. As I stated all kids are from previous marriages, we're in our mid-40s and will not be having any more. We're definitely not in Alabama but we may have to move there now. Yes we're very much in love and will be staying that way. Although he probably won't be sharing this information with too many other people. Guess we'll keep in the family. Obviously this didn't just happen today. Back in January I met a guy at my campus who I really hit it off with, the chemistry was undeniable. A couple days later he asked me if I want to go get lunch together, just by the straightforwardness of how he asked I figured he was asking me out. I was probably blinded by how much I liked him as well. The next several weeks we spent a lot of time together where he would be the one initiating things and taking me around. At this point I assumed we were a couple, however we never got intimate even remotely. He's a practicing Muslim and I figured he wouldn't want to get intimate too soon, so I just didn't push it and honestly I was completely fine. Fast forward to last Sunday when we ran into some of my old friends and when introducing him called him my boyfriend. Immediately after that conversation ended and we went our separate ways he looked at me puzzlingly and asked why I said that. He explained he doesn't date at all and just considered us very good friends and that I'm the closest friend he's had in years. I've never been more embarrassed and it's completely my fault for just jumping to conclusions. TL, Doctor, I thought me and a friend were dating because he was being nice to me and I liked it. Background: I am a veterinarian working with wildlife. This happened about a week ago but I'm still embarrassed. A week and a half ago I got called out to a zoo for a tiger that was not eating and lethargic. After immobilization we did a full workup, x-rays and blood work. Later the blood work showed a mild infection so treatment with antibiotics was indicated. Oral treatment wasn't an option so we had to dart 5 ml of long-acting antibiotics in a big heavy dart with big needle. The tiger was unfortunately 15-20 meters away in its enclosure, so it was already a bit of a tricky shot. To make matters worse, there were 2 students and staff around looking over my shoulders. Position, aim, shoot and oops, in the balls instead of the upper thigh area. Tiger was not amused and had a scrotal swelling, but treatment was on board. Luckily he is doing better now. However it is now a running joke at the university I teach as well. TL doctor darted a tiger in its balls with a big treatment dart. Very embarrassing, with a very grumpy tiger hunting me forever. Obligatory. This happened to me like 4 weeks ago. So I was driving down the street, turned left. As I complete the turn I'm going into a crosswalk, all this at very low speed, when a 4-year-old runs out into the crosswalk and I hit him. I stop immediately, of course, as the mother runs after him. Everyone is screaming. The boy was knocked down and crying. Mom was screaming, for a second at me and then in fear. I kept saying, "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." I couldn't find my phone to call an ambulance, it fell into the footrest, so asked a passerby to call. Then I couldn't figure out how to stop my audiobook, so I turned off the car. I got dizzy and sat down on the curb. I started crying. I saw the mother stand her son up for a second, and he seemed okay. Lots of people came, many to the mother, a couple to me. One lady tried to bring me a water bottle, but I refused and told her to bring it to the mom. Another guy talked to me. Just talked. I didn't really respond, but that's why I didn't go into shock, I think. The father came out of the house and started screaming and yelling, first out of fear, then anger. He said he'd kill me, and kill his wife for letting it happen. He was pacing back and forth in rage, but he calmed down after a couple minutes. Ambulance arrived, then cops. EMTs checked the kid, then took the kid and mom to the hospital in an ambulance. Cops asked me a couple questions. I had the presence of mind to call a neighbor who's a lawyer, who told me to just cooperate fully. Later a traffic lawyer told me that was a mistake, and I should have just remained silent. Oh well. I sent a couple texts to my family when it happened and they kept trying to call me, but when the father started acting threatening I started my phone recording audio, and I didn't want to answer a call and have it stop recording. Eventually I texted them that I thought the kid was okay but I wasn't sure, and he had taken an ambulance to the hospital. My mother drove over from another city and arrived in record time. Knowing her, she wouldn't have speeded at all. There must have been no traffic. 45 minutes after the accident, which felt like 2 hours, most of the audience was gone. Just a cop car, me and then my mom as well, and the father who was sticking around. They lived right there. An hour after the accident, the father walked up to me and apologized for what he said. He apologized profusely. I understand. He was scared and panicked. His 4-year-old had been hit by a car. I just asked if the little boy was okay, but he said he didn't know. The traffic evaluator, don't know what it's called, arrived and started asking me questions. Had me move my car to where I was when the impact occurred, and measured the exact distance from the curb, etc. A witness also gave a report of what he saw. He handed me my license and said I had 4 days to come down to the station for an interview under caution, an interrogation. 4 hours later I got a text from the mother. She wanted to let me know that he was okay, just a couple bumps and bruises. They were home from the hospital. She knew that I must be worried, and wanted me to be okay. I will always be thankful to her for that. I got a lawyer who specializes in this stuff, and met with him 2 days later. He said I'd almost certainly have my license suspended, and if that's all that happens then you'll be lucky. The issue was, it was a crosswalk. As he described it, the law sees the crosswalk as the domain of the pedestrian, cars are only visitors. He went over the story a few times with me. And said okay, you're good for the police interview. In Israel your lawyer can't be present, so I went alone that night. It wasn't as scary as I expected. The cop was pretty nice, though it was clear to me that he was there to get me to incriminate myself. I stuck with my story. The kid ran into the street. I'd seen him before I entered the crosswalk, but he and his mother didn't look as if they intended to cross the street. He ran into the crosswalk when I was already on the crosswalk. He did try to mess me up. Towards the end he asked me if I had anything I wanted to add, and I said yes. Since that evening I've gone back there a couple times. I've tried to think of what I could have done differently. I've tried to think whether there was anything I could have done differently. I paused and took a breath, and he closed the interview file. I was like, wait, I wasn't done. I mean, that's not a good way to end the interview. He said sorry, the document is closed. I can't edit it anymore. He knew what he was doing. It sounded really bad to end my statement with I wonder if there's anything I could have done differently. I asked again if he could change it, so he opened the PDF of my statement and acted like he was trying to click on it and showed me that it couldn't be edited. Can't be done, he said. I said oh no. I wasn't done. That's really not a good ending to my statement. He sighed and clicked the edit button in the police program. Opened the document back up and let me finish my statement. WTF. I finished my statement with, and after thinking about it long and hard, I really do feel that this accident was unavoidable. A much better ending. I was instructed to come back in 48 hours after the mother made her statement for a hearing regarding a 60-day suspension of my license. I came back and sat in front of the Chief of Traffic Police for the Jerusalem District of Israel. He said, "You're suspected of a crime, specifically impeding a pedestrian from completing his crossing the street at a crosswalk. Do you have anything to say before I suspend your license?" I said yes, a few things. First, I feel that this accident was unavoidable. He cut me off and said, "Your lawyer told you to say that." I said right, but I really do think it's true. The cop told me he'd read my statement so I could move on to other stuff. I told him I drive 30,000 to 40,000 kilometers per year, nearly all of them in the city, and that this was the first accident of this kind I'd been involved in. I gave him some letters from veterinary clinics all over the city that said that I provided a critical service to their clinics, and that I needed a car to do my job. I pick up the bodies of deceased pets. I gave him a letter from my boss, detailing that I was the only one in the region who provided the service. I told him that my full-time job, dog boarding, had basically disappeared since COVID hit and people stopped traveling, and that without my car I'd be unemployed. I told him I'm an independent contractor. I told him that I obviously couldn't take bodies by cab. He understood that. He nodded, asked me a couple questions and handed me my license. Told me to be more careful in the future, which I obviously will be. I told him that from now on I'll view all pedestrians as suicidal. He said that was smart. He said I might still hear from the DA if they decide to prosecute, which very well might still happen, but the fact that they decided not to take my license is certainly a good sign. I went home. A few days ago the mother contacted me again. She asked if I could cover the ambulance fee, about $130, which I'm fine with. I apologized to her for not being in touch. My lawyer told me to avoid contact. She understood, and told me in no uncertain terms and in writing, "I do not plan to sue you. You are not at fault, it could have happened to anyone. I will not sue you, not now and not in the future." She did that in writing specifically so it would be binding. She's a lovely person, and I'm so grateful. She even told me that she asked the police to close the case and not pursue charges. She said he's still scared of cars, but that it's passing. I plan to get him a Super Wings toy, cartoon he likes, even though the mom said it wasn't necessary. TLDR, driving, hit a 4-year-old, kiddo is okay, we're all shook up. Edit, I'd like everyone to read this comment on my post, a story from a parent who lost their child to a motor vehicle accident weeks ago. Let's give them a hug, I can't imagine how hard it is for them. www.reddit.com web link